ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਐਗਰੀ-ਫੂਡ ਪਾਇਲਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਰ ਵਾਧਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ। ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਮਈ 14, 2025 ਤੱਕ ਚੱਲੇਗਾ, ਜਿਸ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਸਾਲ 2020 ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ, ਜਿਸ ਅਧੀਨ ਖੇਤੀਬਾੜੀ ਤੇ ਭੋਜਨ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਖਾਨਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਪੱਕੇ ਹੋਣ ਦਾ ਰਾਹ ਪੱਧਰਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰਸ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਦੇਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸਾਲਾਨਾ ਸੀਮਤ ਸੀਮਾ ਰੱਖੀ ਗਈ ਸੀ, ਜੋ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਖਤਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸੀਮਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਖਿੱਤੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਕਾਮੇ ਹਰ ਸਾਲ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਅਧੀਨ ਅਪਲਾਈ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ, ਜੋ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ। ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਅੰਤ ਤੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਤਬਦੀਲੀਆਂ ਲਾਗੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੀਆਂ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਐਗਰੀ-ਫੂਡ ਪਾਇਲਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਕ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਓਪਨ ਵਰਕ ਪਰਮਿਟ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ। ਫਿਰ ਨੌਕਰੀ ਦਾ ਸਕਿੱਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਯੂਨੀਅਨ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਕ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਾਮੇ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰ ਦੀ ਥਾਂ ਤੇ ਰੈਫਰੈਂਸ ਲੈਟਰ ਅਟੈਸਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਣਗੇ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਅਰਜ਼ੀ ਧਾਰਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਚੋਣ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ ਕਿ ਜਾਂ ਨੌਕਰੀਆਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਸ਼ਰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੂਰਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੀਡੀਅਨ ਵੇਜ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਦੀ ਯੋਗਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਪੂਰਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਬਾਕੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿਸਥਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਲੈ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜੋ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ।
In the House of Commons. Very lucky to work alongside him, and very lucky to have him join us today and to be visiting our host here at L'Original Packing. This is a phenomenal opportunity to share some good news about changes we're making to a key program in our portfolio of immigration streams that's particularly designed to help the agricultural sector get access to the workers it needs, so we can continue to support the sector and its role in promoting economic growth here in Canada. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. There's no secret that our economy is still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, and I've got to say, part of the solution to maximizing Canada's economic potential coming out of what has been a few extremely difficult years is going to be supplying the economy with the labour it needs to grow. It's essential, both in the short term and the long term, to address the labour shortage that persists today, but the skills shortage that's going to be essential we remedy if we're going to maximise our economic growth in the generations ahead. You know, it was just this past summer, there was nearly 1 million jobs open in the Canadian economy. And despite what opportunities we have to fund training, despite what opportunities we have to bring marginalized people into the economy, we know that we're not going to be able to meet the needs of the domestic labor force solely with the domestic workforce that exists today. That's why we need to continue to welcome newcomers into our countries, to grow our communities, but to provide businesses with the labour that they need, which will in turn support the jobs of Canadians who are working for these businesses now, after so many businesses have been hit hard over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. Les employeurs canadiens du secteur agroalimentaire sont confrontés à des défis particuliers sur le marché du travail, ce qui les empêche de répondre à bon nombre de leurs besoins en main-d'œuvre et de faire croître leurs entreprises et l'économie. C'est quelque chose que l'Original Packing sait très bien. Farm workers in particular and food processing workers are essential to our ability to carry out planting, harvesting and processing activities to get food from the farm to our kitchen tables. I'm thinking about mushroom and greenhouse crop production businesses that have reported challenges with filling, harvesting and other positions on a year-round basis. There's related labour shortages that have been reported in the livestock harvesting industries. We also need more food processing labourers to bring that bounty from farm to table and to meet the needs in other sectors. In particular, we discussed today the challenges that we're having at this business and in the sector, recruiting butchers who are actually going to be able to make sure we can get the products to households across the country. L'Original Packing was sharing during our tour of the facility today that they're currently sourcing their products from 95% Canadian businesses. This business right here is an essential link in the supply chain that helps us feed families in our communities. The reality is, if we don't continue to develop a workforce that's going to allow the agricultural and agri-food sectors to continue to produce, we're going to be facing certain challenges when it comes to food security, one of the most important aspects of the economy that makes a real difference to families who live in our communities. We shared some discussions about how there's limited interest from students who are signing up for butchery education programs that will qualify them to do the jobs that are available today, and that's a perfect example of why we need to continue to expand programs like the Agri-Food pilot. We recognize the tremendous value that foreign workers can bring to the agri-food industry. They come often from abroad and help safeguard the continuity of trade, commerce, health, and food security for everyone in this country. J'ai l'opportunité pour une rencontre très brève avec nouveaux arrivants, Justin qui est arrivé comme à Cameroun récemment, qui fait une différence pour cette entreprise et fait une contribution de la communauté aussi. Look, we want to continue to embrace these kinds of programs because we believe there's value in delivering workers to businesses, but people to rural communities in particular. We're committed to continuing to improve our programs that are going to give employers a hand in tax. That's why back in 2020 we launched the Agri-Food Workers Pilot to be a very specific approach that would help us attract and retain temporary foreign workers by giving those who are eligible a pathway towards permanent residency so they can continue to make a difference in the long term. Today, on the cusp of what I expect will be the busy season in agriculture, we're announcing a number of changes to the Agri-Food Workers Pilot based on recommendations that came directly from stakeholders in the industry over the past 3 years. Aujourd'hui, à l'aube de la saison agricole estivale chargée, nous annonçons un certain nombre de changements au programme pilote basés sur les recommandations des parties prenantes au cours des 3 dernières années. First and foremost, I'm pleased to share that we're going to be extending the pilot and accepting applications for an additional 2 years until May of 2025, which is going to give longer-term support to the sector and allow us to continue to test out the pilot, which experienced certain challenges, of course, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Second, we're going to be removing the annual limits for how many candidates can apply for specific occupations under the pilot. We trust that removing these occupational subcaps, so to speak, are going to enable and encourage more people to apply in the sectors that may have been oversubscribed. We also intend to make certain other changes which will be phased in by the end of this year. This will include expanding open work permit access to family members of all participants in the pilot, regardless of the particular occupation code they have. If we're going to depend on foreign workers to meet the economic needs of our businesses, I believe it's incumbent upon us to extend opportunities for their families to be with them. And I think we have a moral responsibility to promote family reunification, which is also going to be an excellent recruitment tool when workers who are thinking about coming to Canada know that their loved ones will be able to be here with them and to be able to work to support themselves. We'll also be allowing unions to attest to a candidate's work experience as an alternative to requiring reference letters from employers, which can sometimes be challenging for certain applicants depending on the relationship they have with their employer. We will also be asking applicants residing in Canada to meet either the job offer requirement, including the condition that it must match the job's median wage, or the education requirement, including educational credential assessment verification. And finally, we're going to begin to accept a person's work experience that may have been gained under an open work permit for vulnerable workers, giving more workers the opportunity to qualify. Expanding the protections for workers who come here temporarily is essential. We do not want to foster a culture where workers are afraid to report exploitive situations for fear that they won't be able to count their work experience towards permanent residency programs. This change is going to encourage more workers who might not be treated fairly to seek protection and seek opportunities to work with respectable employers in the sector in which they came to Canada to work within. Together, these changes are a significant step towards meeting the long-standing labour market needs of agri-food employers. The meat processing, mushroom and greenhouse crop production, and livestock raising industries are now going to have more support to fill their ongoing labour requirements with full-time, year-round employees. L'expansion des programmes pilotes offrira également un soutien plus large aux candidats en leur permettant de faire venir leur famille au Canada. Et notre ministère continue d'explorer d'autres améliorations dans le but de réduire les obstacles à la vulnérabilité des candidats et d'élargir le parcours vers la résidence permanente. Before closing, let me say that I'm enthusiastic about being able to extend and expand this Agri-Food Workers Program. I come from a rural community in Nova Scotia, and I know what it means to be able to source the workers that our local businesses need, and I know what it means to see families move to and stay in a rural community. Back in 2015, when I first ran for public office, I saw young families moving away from the rural community that I called home. I saw the schools close when that happened, and I saw health services be diminished at the same time. We've embraced immigration back in rural Nova Scotia as a growth strategy for our communities, and now we're starting to see services be restored. We're starting to see our community become a more vibrant and dynamic place to live. And a lot of this is attributable to the leadership of businesses that have embraced immigration as a growth strategy, not just to support their own enterprise, but to support the community in which they call home. This program is a great complement to many of our existing immigration programs, but even more importantly, it demonstrates how we can build upon the success of a very Canadian approach, using immigration to address labor needs of a sector that helped build this country and frankly that's going to be vital to sustaining it. I also want to specifically thank a few notable stakeholders who really helped inform the policy development process, including the Canadian Labour Congress, who always has a focus on growing the economy but respecting and protecting workers at the same time, the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, the Canadian Mushroom Growers Association, and the Canadian Meat Council. When an industry such as the agri-food sector faces labour challenges, it affects potential economic growth right across this country. And by using immigration to support the sector, we're no doubt going to learn lessons that will help us strengthen local economies. But we can't do it on our own. For the newcomers to settle and succeed in Canada, we're going to need the help of the neighbours, co-workers and employers. We're going to need communities to welcome these people and their families and assist them with finding their way and successfully integrating them here. I should say thank you to Contact, who showed up today and worked closely to help source workers for this business and others in the region as well.